Welcome to video 4 of our series Intercultural Challenges. Have you ever found it difficult to communicate with someone? Of course, we all have. And when we include different cultures in communication, it can add complexity. But what exactly do we mean by culture? And what role does it play in our communication? We have seen in previous videos that culture is much more than your nationality. Your identity includes aspects such as your personality, your sexuality, your hobbies and studies, the languages you speak, and so much more. Individuals are different, but the complexity we experience is similar. So, we want to make sure to include all these different elements that can influence us as we consider the role of culture in communication. Let's start by looking at an example, a discussion. Linguists refer to this as a speech act, a particular context in which people interact. Let's imagine that your professor has asked you and another student to discuss the pros and cons of learning online. The task is clear for the teacher in that academic culture, but is it clear for the students? And how do you and the other students each understand the meaning of discuss in an educational context? This is not a trick question, although it certainly sounds rather philosophical. So let's look at what Lisa, Nadi and Chris have to say.
A discussion involves giving your point of view and maybe even trying to convince the other person to agree with you. You should get straight to the point and be clear so the other person can understand you. It's okay to disagree, but yeah, you should try to make your ideas obvious.
For me, a discussion is more of an exploration, rather than thinking alone. A discussion is kind of an opportunity to learn together. Taking the time to listen to others, understand what they think, and then contribute to the conversation to keep it going. I guess it also depends who you are discussing the topic with.
Actually, if I have to discuss something, I give facts and information, not my opinion. That has a stronger effect.
So, who's right? Or is there even a right answer? We think you'll agree that there is not necessarily a right or wrong way to have a discussion, but there are many different ways. What's important here is that the very definition of a discussion is not the same for different students or their teachers. And this will play an important role in their interaction with each other, both in terms of their respective experience of the discussion and in terms of its results. And it will require openness, listening, respect, and flexibility. But why the different definitions of the same concept? Well, depending on the school system they experienced, students could have seen different models of what you do in a discussion. The way that their friends or family communicate when making decisions or talking about important things could also impact students' ideas. Their individual conception may have been formed and shared by the different groups they belong to, or may also relate to their personalities or the topic being discussed. So, Lisa's definition of a discussion is not linked to just one aspect of her identity. That would be far too simple. Actually, there are many social and personal factors that could impact her expectations of a discussion, such as the regions she is connected to, her education, her gender socialization, and her personality. We are often unconscious of all these influences on our communication. And when people's expectations about an interaction do not match, the results can be complicated. For example, Lisa could be seen to have a more egalitarian outlook. In other words, for her, hierarchy is not or should not be important. So she might assume that everyone in her discussion group will just speak easily and feel comfortable expressing their opinions. But if her conversation partner, Nadi, sees Lisa as more knowledgeable or better educated, Nadi might decide not to participate right away and rather wait to be encouraged to speak. This could be a very frustrating experience for Lisa. She's expecting a lively debate where everyone says what they think. Frustrating for Nadi as well, who is waiting to be invited into the discussion but is never asked. Meanwhile, some people may be expecting Chris to add his opinion after giving information and facts. With this one short example, we can see how culture influences communication. Take a moment to think about situations you've encountered. Here are just 3 of many aspects you might want to keep in mind. We encourage you to pause the video after each one and take a few notes for yourself. Let's look at taking turns in a conversation. If for you it's normal to wait until someone else has finished talking until you speak, then what happens if it's normal for the other person to interrupt and overlap? How does this affect your interaction? What about gender? Imagine that in your experience, the male person is expected to lead and make decisions. Now you're working with someone who's a feminist and expects women to take an equal part. Would it affect your communication in such a context? Then there's being direct or indirect. Is it important for you to be direct and literal? Or is the indirect meaning supposed to be clear for people around you? In this video, we have explored different definitions and expectations of a discussion. In fact, before having a discussion, one almost needs to discuss what a discussion is, which is a challenge in itself if we do not discuss in the same way. This also applies to other speech acts such as presentations, greetings, or even inviting someone to lunch. We have seen that conceptions are not automatically shared between individuals. In intercultural settings, we need to be particularly aware of this. To conclude, is it necessary every single time you work with someone to check that you have the same understanding of words and concepts? Maybe not, but as soon as you feel you aren't on the same page, this is probably an important checkpoint. Because one of the reasons communication is complex is that multiple cultural aspects are at play. Culture has an important role in communication. In our next video, we'll look at how we can continue to improve our communicative awareness in academic settings.